Protection Agency is rolling out new regulations to limit chemical plants from releasing toxic substances into the air. The rule requires these plants to monitor their output of harmful chemicals, specifically those chemicals associated with cancer. The EPA hopes to cut 6,000 tons of toxic emissions from the air each year. Back in 2019, CBS News correspondent Janet Shamlian spoke with a man in Reserve, Louisiana, a town located near a string of chemical plants known as Cancer Alley.
The EPA says the cancer risk here is almost 50 times the national average.
They built this monstrosity up on top of us.
Robert Taylor has lived most of his 78 years here. Even his family's cemetery is surrounded by a refinery. He says his mom, sister, uncle, and nephew all died of cancer.
As I stand here, it's overwhelming to me. All of my folks are here. I will eventually wind up here.
Let's bring in Michael Gerrard. He's a professor at Columbia University's Climate School and director of the Sabin Center for Climate Change Law. Professor, can you give us an assessment of this new rule? How big of a deal is it, and how effective might it be?
100 chemical plants that use and produce these chemicals are suspected of causing cancer in communities that are already overburdened by a large number of other environmental threats. The rule is very detailed and gets into lots of details about how the plants need to change their operations in order to greatly reduce their emissions of these suspected carcinogens.
And how would it work in practice?
So if somebody wants to build a new plant or significantly modify an existing one, they're going to have to build these controls into it. For the plants that are already operating, they're given a period of months or years to install the equipment and change their operations in order for it to work. And if they don't do that, they're subject to environmental enforcement by the government and for citizen suits.
How expensive would it be for a plant already operating to undergo the necessary requirements to get up to snuff?
Well, in some instances, it'll be millions of dollars to get up to snuff. The industry has known for some time that this is coming. They've already been making the preparations, and they'll continue to do that.
And some have been making preparations by calling their lawyers. One Louisiana plant is already planning to fight this in court. What would the legal argument against this look like?
Well, this is a standard kind of regulation of the sort that EPA has been issuing for a long time. There are often little technical arguments that are made. The regulation has hundreds of parts. People may pick at one or two and say that they went too far, or that the draft rule was so different from the final rule that EPA should have given them an opportunity to comment on the proposed revision. That's the sort of argument that's typically made.
And would those kinds of arguments lead to a plant prevailing and not having to participate at all, or might it lead just to incremental tweaks in the law, something short of not having to participate in the new regulation?
More typically, if little tweaks. The kinds of regulations we're talking about here have so much detail that little bits here and there can be modified without changing the overall requirements.
And now we are in a presidential election year. How easy would it be for a future administration to come in and just say, no, let's reverse all of that?
They can't do it overnight. Trump tried that the first term without going through the necessary procedures and was repeatedly slapped down in court. It can take a year or two or three to go back through the procedures to change it, just as it's taken EPA a couple of years to get to the current point. The procedural requirements are very strict.
Professor Michael Gerrard with Columbia University, thank you so much.
Thank you.